The Black Templars, Codex Armageddon, written by Andy Chambers, Jervis Johnson, and Gavin Thorpe. Pages 21 to 24. Narrated by R.J. Bailey. After the Great Heresy, Rogul Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, resisted attempts to break up his legions. But when the Imperial Fists began to be persecuted as heretics, Dorn relented. To prove his loyalty to the Emperor, the first High Marshal of the Black Templars, Sigismund, assembled a massive war fleet and began the greatest Space Marine crusade in the history of the Imperium. It has lasted for 10,000 years. The Black Templars are a fleet-based chapter, with many battle barges, strike cruisers, and other craft, such as training vessels and gigantic forge ships. They are rarely assembled as a chapter, but instead are divided into a number of crusades, each one numbering several hundred Space Marines. Each crusade is led by a marshal, while the High Marshal is responsible for monitoring the progress of all the current crusades. The Black Templars chapter has no single homeworld which they can call their own. Instead, they establish chapter keeps on every world which they conquer or reclaim for the Emperor. The main purpose of these chapter keeps is to recruit new Space Marines from amongst the finest warriors of the native population. Chapter keeps also perform an important role as staging posts for mustering the crusades together.
What is your life? My honor is my life. What is your fate? My duty is my fate. What is your fear? My fear is to fail. What is your reward? My salvation is my reward. What is your craft? My craft is death. What is your pledge? My pledge is eternal service.
Troops. Black Templars Squad. Black Templars do not have scout squads. Instead, initiates adopt a neophyte to train, teaching them their skills and educating them in battlecraft. In return, a neophyte must serve their initiate, attending to their day-to-day needs and waiting on them at the chapter feasts. Fast Attack. Black Templars Assault Squad and Black Templars Bike Squadron. As with the other Black Templar battle brethren, bike squads also have a duty to train neophytes in their particular battle skills. In contrast, ancient tradition forbids assault squads from taking neophytes, as these units are usually in the thickest of the fighting and suffer the heaviest losses. Such risks cannot be taken with the chapter's future warriors before they are fully trained.
Your honor is your life. Let none dispute it.
Captain Navarre of the Black Templars' Fourth Crusade. Heavy Support. Land Raider Crusader. The Crusader variant of the Land Raider was developed by the Black Templars during the Duralas Crusade to aid them in the numerous sieges which they had to fight in order to reconquer the Hive World. As news of the Crusaders' success spread, other Space Marine chapters requested information regarding their remodeling of the Land Raider, and in 763 M39, the Crusader pattern became approved by Mars. Not that this had stopped many chapters using it beforehand. The Crusader is designed to smash into the enemy lines, disgorging the Space Marines into the heart of their adversaries. Its numerous short-ranged weapons allow the Crusader to weaken the enemy before the assault is launched, and to provide a torrent of firepower to support its cargo once they are in combat. High Marshal Helbrecht. Helbrecht exemplifies the qualities of stubbornness and unswerving loyalty to the Emperor that are the marks of the Black Templar chapter. He was elected High Marshal in 989 M41, and is currently leading the Black Templars as they storm Orc space hulks in the Armageddon system. Weapons fire strobed through the dark corridors of the hulk. The cacophony of shrapnel and ricochets ringing against rust-splotched bulkheads was like the foundry of a mad god. The initiates covering the doors out of the generator room were engaged in a fierce firefight with the orcs outside. Soon, the alien scum would amass enough strength to rush the handful of Black Templars opposing them. High Marshal Helbrecht turned to the tech marine kneeling beside the heavy thermic charge they had brought aboard. "How much longer, Brother Hexil?" he shouted over the roar of weapons. Tech Marine Hexil did not look up from the fine adjustments he was making as he replied. "The weapon's spirit was offended by the rough treatment it suffered on arrival, High Marshal. If its containment loop is not realigned by the proper supplications, it will fail to consume itself and grow to the correct size for full devastation." "Try to hurry, brother. We don't have much—" The High Marshal was distracted by a sudden increase in the firing at one of the doors. Howls and yells announced an orc attack was imminent. He crossed to it in 3 quick strides, just in time to meet the alien's rush. A huge orc leader crashed through the doorway and eviscerated an initiate with a thrust beneath his breastplate. Helbrecht parried its next blow and countered with a swing perfectly timed to catch his foe off balance from his missed attack. The glittering energy field of his ancient power sword slashed through the orc's neck with barely a hint of resistance, and the great orc fell clutching spasmodically at the stump of its neck. Helbrecht leapt forward into the lesser orcs behind, hacking and slashing with little finesse but horrible effectiveness. Limbs and heads flew apart. In seconds, the doorway was filled with twitching corpses. Brother Mikhail came up with his flamer, and the surviving orcs were driven back down the corridor by a wall of flames. "The charge is prepared," called Brother Hexil. Helbrecht instantly switched comm channels with a nerve impulse. "High Marshal to the light of purity. Immediate recovery. Code blue." The Templars moved to the center of the chamber and were teleported to the waiting strike vessel in a blinding flash of light. Seconds later, the thermic charge blasted a new crater in the flank of the orc space hulk. You have been listening to The Black Templars, pages 21 to 24. Codex Armageddon was written by Andy Chambers, Jervis Johnson, and Gavin Thorpe, and narrated by me, R.J. Bailey. Thank you to Andy Chambers, Jervis Johnson, and Gav Thorpe for writing the fiction I grew up with. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a review where you found it, or like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, depending how you're listening. You can also contact Black Library directly and ask them to let me narrate audiobooks for them for realsies. This production, like all of Oldex, is entirely unofficial and uncommercial. From an out-of-print publication, is a derivative work with all copyrights owned by Games Workshop, and is a celebration of the hobby and lore I grew up with. If you have suggestions for other old Codex fiction for me to narrate on this podcast, you can comment, contact me on Twitter @RJBailey, or email robertjbailey@gmail.com. Links are in the show description.